Good evening. I feel a little presumptuous with a microphone with this group tonight, but we want to get started and move this along. So on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, welcome. Danny Stavarius, our Executive Director, is left out of town for vacation today, so I'm standing in for her. I'm the Chairman of the Board of the Chamber, so we're very pleased to produce this event for you. We have only 3 candidates tonight instead of 5. Dave Holterman is also traveling with a trip that was on the schedule before all of this happened, and he apologizes, and we apologize that that happened. Mike Hoffman texted me this morning, and he's been in bed with a respiratory flu since the beginning of the week, and he said, there's no way I can get there. I've never been this sick in my life. He said, Mike, it is what it is. There's not much we can do. He said, quite frankly, we don't want you here if you have that flu. So we have 3 great candidates that will have a chance to answer some questions tonight. Stan Stricker has, again, nicely agreed to be our moderator for the forum. And we have a definitive plan that we go through. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening. If they need 2 minutes, they'll be given 2 minutes for a closing if they need that long. And then we have about 5 or 6 questions, and they will have up to 1.5 minutes to answer each of those questions. So we'll go in turn with the candidates, and each will have an opportunity to respond to the questions that we've prepared. If you have questions, Diamond has cards, and she can bring them to you and collect them back. And if we have time at the end, we may be able to take those questions. We do have some behavior expectations for you. These should not be personal attacks, or the questions cannot be directed at a particular candidate. They have to be questions that are asked so that all the candidates would have the opportunity to answer them. And you're an audience, and our expectation is that you will be a polite audience, and there really isn't any reason for you to be interacting or standing and cheering and sitting and booing and those kinds of things like we've seen other places this week. So with that being said, we will proceed, and I'll turn this over to Stan.
Yeah, after an exciting week of federal and national politics, this should be pretty mild. Did everybody enjoy the week in Washington? No cheering, no animosity. All right, we have 6 questions tonight. Unless you'd like to write some more, we have 3 out of the 5 candidates, and we are glad they could attend tonight, and we're glad you can attend because the easiest way to make a decision is to actually know your candidates. So we're going to begin with a 2-minute opening statement tonight. We did not pick who's going to go first, so I'm going to pick it. It really doesn't matter because you're reaching it to start answering a different question each time. So, 2-minute opening statement, Shelley Kroll-Hankey.
Hi, thank you for the Chamber for doing this and the people that have come to hear us speak tonight. I'm just saying I am interested in becoming back on the board again. I feel like my job wasn't done when I left 2 years ago. I had 3 years of experience and was just getting started. I decided to run again because I think it's always good to have a good, diverse pool of candidates to pick from, which is now leading to our primary on February 18th. I also like to know that decisions are being made in the best interest of the students and the community. And I feel that I can make those decisions from being a parent and an educator and a Milton School District resident. I have a lot of the information and facts that I needed from being on many of the community committees I've been on for the school district. And I feel like my standards, my moral standards of honesty, integrity, truthfulness, respect, and honor are part of what needs to be a good board member. And sometimes those qualities are not always demonstrated in the heat of the argument or in the heat of the discussion at a board meeting. And it's difficult to keep composure. I've been there before and know what that's like. But I feel that I can bring that to the table and bring it back to the board. And I love knowing how my taxes are going to be spent. I want to be able to explain to other people. Mine went up hugely, way more than I thought they were going to. But I'm also in the city of Janesville, and that played a big factor. And I don't think people always are aware of all the factors that go into what their taxes are spending for. The school district amount is just a small amount of what your entire tax bill is. So I like to have input so I can be more informed and explain it to other citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Your 2-minute opening statement, Karen Hall.
Thank you to the chamber for inviting us here tonight. I am the incumbent on the panel that is running. I would like to be reelected because throughout the last 3 or 4 years that I've been on the board, I have shown that, or I've demonstrated that I can lead with a level head, with fairness, with honesty, integrity, as well as transparency. I would also like to see through the projects that we have started. The board and the community as a whole, along with community stakeholders, worked very hard at getting this referendum passed, that we are now in the middle of seeing to fruition. And I would like to be able to see that to the end, and make sure that we keep our promises to you, the community, and sticking within a budget and providing the best educational opportunities that we can to our students. I guess that's it. Okay.
All right, thank you, Karen. And Chuck Jackson, your 2-minute opening statement.
Hi, I'm Chuck. Thank you for having this debate. I'm running simply because I think that the district can use some help from an administrative standpoint. I don't think that there's any debate that the Milton School District does a tremendous job educating kids. I'm not an educator, other than I would say the primary educator of every child is their parent. So therefore, I guess I am an educator. But with my business experience, and I have been on a board, a couple of different boards through my life, I think I have things to offer to the district. I think that the district, as most entities are, needs help in process, procedure, policy, and that's what I think I can bring. As far as trying to educate children, I don't think that there's much of any need there.
Thank you very much, Chuck. All right, the first question has prepared for us from a committee of the chamber. We'll begin with Karen Hall. Karen, many people believe that the schools are the center of the community. What does this statement mean to you, and how would it affect your decision as a board member?
Well, I think the schools are the center of the community, and that it is what draws people into that community. As we all are aware of, is if you don't have a good school district or a good school system, people are not going to want to come and live in your community. I think they also bring businesses into the community that can benefit for our children, and how that affects the way I would vote as far as a board member goes. I've always voted by conscience. I believe that in doing the right thing, not necessarily the easy thing. And I believe that I have shown in the past that I have always put the best interest of our children first. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. If you need the question repeated, feel free to ask. But Chuck Jackson, many people believe that the schools are the center of the community. What does this statement mean to you, and how would it affect your decision as a board member?
Well, I think the cliche is that it takes a community to educate a child, and I think that there's a lot of truth to that. I do believe, like Karen said, that people choose to live in our district. I think that's very evident with the population that we have in the city of Janesville that's in the Milton School District. Well-educated children assist the business community. It creates community because you have individuals from the community that get educated here, decide to live here, buy a house here, work here, instead of, as some people might suggest, Milton's a bedroom community and everybody, migrates at the beginning of the day to a different city, a different job. I would like to see us be the place where people come to. I think there's not anyone who doesn't believe that the schools are the vitality of the city.
Thank you, Chuck and Shelley. Schools, the center of the community. How would this affect your decision as a board member?
As a board member, it's probably one of the priorities that you look at. The school district of Milton is the number one employer in Milton. There's 610 employees at our district. It drives the economic circulation in our community. It drives whether industry is going to come to our community or not. Whether if you have a good school, which we do, we have one of top report cards for our district. It exceeds expectations. We have several schools that are above that, and all of that is a factor that plays in people deciding where they're going to build their houses, where they're going to get a job, if they're going to commute or come into the community. It is a showcase for our community to have the kids, have the people come to our district and our buildings to see what's happening in our buildings and what we have to offer.
Thank you, Shelley. Chuck, this question will be to you first. Please share what standards of honesty, dignity, respect, and honor mean to you, and as a board member, how you will carry out your responsibility in creating an environment where these values will flourish. Again, please share what standards of honesty, dignity, respect, and honor mean to you, and as a board member, how will you carry out your responsibility in creating an environment where these values will flourish?
I think that everyone needs to respect everyone. Everyone needs to listen to others' opinion, others' concerns. And I can give an example of something that happened in the district that personally I was disappointed in. There was a board member who requested a special meeting. The special meeting was called because it was appropriate. It was called to order, and it was promptly called for adjournment. That's not good boardship. The board member should listen to the concerns of every board member, understand what their issues are, and then make a decision. And that's the kind of board member I would be. I think that's integrity. I think that's honesty. I think that that is the responsibility that you have as a board member, is to listen, understand, ask questions, and then make a determination.
Thank you, Chuck. Shelley, please share what standards of honesty, dignity, respect, and honor mean to you. And as a board member, how will you carry out your responsibility in creating an environment where these values will flourish?
Many of these values are in our on our website as kind of the code of the board to follow through and things we expect our students and staff to be able to do. A lot of times I do not, when I'm attending board meetings or when I was on the board, I felt like some board members didn't respect our administration and didn't give the respect that was deserved of them for running our facilities and running the operations on a daily basis. I look at board members and our administrators as the top of the role model spectrum that then comes down to the students and the families. As part of that honor, dignity, and respect, you don't come to the board with any preconceived notions or agendas or special interest items. You come with an open mind, and as a board member, I would make sure that I would be on that plan to come and have that honor, dignity, and respect, which people often say are my top qualities. When I say something, I mean what I'm going to be saying. And I think that's a important training we've gotten from our school district attorney through many different trainings I had as a board member, and what it means to be a good board member is having those qualities.
Thanks, Shelley. Karen?
Well, I must say I agree completely with both Chuck and Shelley on what they have said. I think part of it also goes along with that respecting each other. Saying, you know what, we don't agree on this situation, but we are adults. We can agree to disagree. Let's reach some sort of a compromise and move forward. I believe that I have demonstrated that in the 4 years that I have been on the board. I think it also means that we listen more and we talk a lot less. Some people describe that as active listening. It means admitting when you're wrong, admitting when you made a mistake or you don't know the answer. Following through when you tell an individual, whether it's an administrator or a community member, that you're going to look into something and see what's going on and getting back to them. And it's that open-mindedness. Okay, I guess that's it.
All right. Thank you, Karen. This question will be for Shelley to begin. Effectively communicating with staff, media, and the community is an important part of being a school board member. What do you think are appropriate and effective ways of communicating with these stakeholders?
Well, again, one of our mission statements, according to the board website, is to have a partnership with families in the community and have a two-way communication system. I feel that as a board, we need to speak as one voice when we go to speak to the media and the community, and it should be one person, the board president, talking about it. There should not be special interest interviews, special editorials being done by board members, questions being answered maybe out of context. And I think that's been a part of what our lack of trust from the community has been, because there's too many cooks in the kitchen, I guess you'd say, giving their input, so then you're hearing it from one side, the other side, and if we speak as one voice and speak as a unified board in giving the information that the community wants in an honest, transparent, and open way, we can gain that trust back.
Thank you, Shelley. Karen, effectively communicating with staff, media, and the community is an important part of being a school board member. What do you think are appropriate and effective ways of communicating with these stakeholders?
I do agree with Shelley in that it is a two-way communication process, but I think it's not only the responsibility of the board, but it is also a responsibility of the administration. They need to be able to communicate to the community and to the staff in the district what's going on, and provide them with as much accurate information as possible. That is something that's not necessarily occurred over the course of the last several years. And I think that has led to a lot of miscommunication. It's, again, being that respectful, honest, speaking as one voice, but then understanding that one voice needs to also understand that there are 7 individuals on that board, and we may not all share that same opinion, and we do have a right to our opinion, and that is, again, something that should be conveyed to other board members and to administration, but not necessarily spoken as the opinion of the board. Thank you.
Finally, Chuck, your thoughts on effective public communication.
You started this event with a quip about something happening in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, I think that the Milton School District is somewhat of a mirror image of that in the recent past. There's no doubt there's been polarity. There is no doubt that there has been a lack of respect, maybe is the right word, understanding, a very strong divergence of viewpoints. The correct answer to what you're saying is that the president, the superintendent, the communication director should be presenting the viewpoint of the district. Unfortunately, we have had some challenges in the recent past, and all voices want to be heard and should be heard. So that could be perceived as creating turmoil. But I think it's honesty, and I think it's the board members doing what they believe they should be doing, and that is putting their viewpoints and their ideas forward. Hopefully we can have a more unified board in the future. I think the district is certainly working to that point, and it would be a wonderful world if we just had 3 people that were saying everything and everyone singing hallelujah.
Thank you, Chuck. Karen, this will be your question to answer first. The school board will soon be considering whether to renew $2.5 million in operating referendum costs, which would allow the district to maintain the current level of funding. Would you support moving forward with this renewal? If not, what would you prioritize as $2.5 million in budget reductions?
Thanks, Dan. I knew this was going to be one of these questions. If after we as a board and an administration has taken a look at the budget and we have trimmed as much as we can from that budget, and if there is still if we are still short in funds and we need to go to another operational referendum, I would support that. I do think that we have an administration team right now in district office that is very adept at doing that, has already started looking at that. And I think that the community is going to be happy. At least most of the community should be happy in what they see, hopefully, as an outcome with that. In the past, I don't necessarily think that administration was so financially responsible. And in fact, some have pointed out that they have been financially irresponsible. I don't see that occurring with this current administration. So I think we will cut as much as we can. We will look at combining services where we need to. And if we do definitely need to ask for money, that is something that we will do.
Thank you, Karen. All right, Chuck, the school board will soon be considering whether to renew $2.5 million operating referendum, which would allow the district to maintain the current level of funding. Would you support moving forward with the renewal? If not, where would you cut $2.5 million?
I think from my business experience, this is something that I would be very capable of helping the district with. The first thing I will say is that if we go to referendum, which I would think is almost a given, I will support the motion to go to referendum. Whether I will support the referendum as an individual, I can't say at this point. I don't have enough data. But the idea of asking the community to give us the money, I think, is a totally legitimate question. So I would support asking the question. At this point, I don't know if I would support the question. When the referendum was passed, I went to the previous administration, told them that they should take that $2.5 million and keep it as a separate pile of money and explain to the people how we were enhancing the opportunity for our students by having this extra $2.5 million. The administration chose not to follow that path. Now, when we're going to go to ask for a renewal, it's going to be more difficult for us to explain to people how we improved the educational experience for our children by having this money. We know, whether it's the school or the city, that the state has put handcuffs on our ability to raise money and have budgets. So it's probably money we need, but it's a difficult question.
So, Shelley, your thoughts on a $2.5 million operating referendum: support, need, or cuts?
At this point, they have been using that money, and it has been something that, when it was approved by the voters, it was something that was in need. And now with our new facilities and our new staffing situations that will probably be needed, we're going to have to be looking at something. Obviously, we need to be fiscally responsible. There's been lots of movement with doing business partnerships over the last 5 or 6 years in every district, and especially in Milton. The businesses in Milton are constantly giving to the district and supporting the district either through education opportunities for our students or through financing. Teacher salary and benefits are not going to go down. We have an increase in growth that is looking when you see all the building and the home building construction that's going on. And our the spending per pupil is still at one of the lowest in the state for Milton, but the money we're getting from the state isn't probably going to rise much. So we probably are going to be looking at a referendum in the near future, and I would support that.
Thank you, Shelley. Chuck, you'll be answering this question first. Co-curricular activities include but aren't limited to programs like athletics, FFA, FBLA, show choir, band, choir, theater, and forensics. In your opinion, what role do co-curricular activities play in a school district, and how should they be factored into budget decisions?
I'm not a popular guy on this one. We talked about the schools being the center of the community. I think that's true. But as far as athletics go, I believe in the European model, where it has nothing to do with the schools and everything is a club. That's not the world that we live in. We need to support athletics. It builds the student. It gives them a well-rounded educational experience. But if I have the choice between remedial reading and cross country, I did cross country for 4 years, made it to state 3 times. I would choose remedial reading.
All right, Shelley, co-curricular activities. In your opinion, what role do they play in a school district and how should they be factored into budget decisions?
Well, as a teacher and a parent, I think they're equal to academics. As a teacher, I see what co-curricular activities do for my students. They keep them involved. Sometimes that's the only reason they come to school. They have an avenue to find support from other students and other coaches. It's not just sports. It's music, it's art, it's forensics, it's mock trial, you name it. There's clubs out there for kids to involve. If you go to the high school, you can see everything that's involved on the wall when you walk down the hall out of the high school. For any student that wants to do something. It's the well-being of the student. It makes them well-rounded as a whole student. It brings pride to those students that they are involved and they feel like they do belong somewhere. And everyone can participate in something. Again, it's not just sports. It's all the other things that encompass our schools. And it gives students the opportunities they may not have somewhere else.
Thank you, Shelley. Karen, co-curriculars and their funding.
As a parent in the district, I can speak firsthand that the school does not fund all co-curriculars 100%. If you have a choir student, you as a choir parent are forking out a lot of money for show choir, for trips, for extracurriculars. So they're not just funded by the district themselves. And I know the same goes for the other clubs in the sports that are out there. They have booster clubs. Pretty much everything, all the sports have a booster club. They are important. They provide those soft skills that our children need when they leave our high school. They expose our children to diversity. They work on the equity of our children so that all of our children in the district have the equal ability to participate in co-curriculars. Just go to the spring choir concert and you will understand what I'm talking about. If you were at the fall concert, you will understand what I am talking about. We now have a choir that is made up of our kids that have some special challenges, which was really awesome to see. That's your co-curriculars in action. That's what we need for. They make much better, well-rounded adults. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. All right, Shelley. Hashtag We Are Milton has been used in a variety of applications and settings across the community and the district. A current, very visible example is the billboard located on Highway 26 as you enter Milton from the south. Explain your understanding of the meaning of this hashtag and provide examples of where and how you would see it used effectively.
That's an interesting hashtag because when you're a city of Janesville resident and not from Milton, it makes a challenge of becoming that way. And I felt over the years I have now become We Are Milton. And they've embraced my children. They've embraced my involvement in the community. I say over and over again, We Are Milton, because Milton gives back to our kids over and over and over again. Whether it's equipment, whether it's support, whether it's scholarships to be able to go on a field trip, whether it's backpacks for kids, whatever it is, the community gives. And We Are Milton is one whole involvement of this community. And not one person goes without lacking something because of our community coming together as one. I would use it in every avenue that we have, whether it's in our business world, whether it's in bringing new people to our district, whether it's bringing agriculture to our community. Every aspect of Milton is We Are Milton, and they come together as one for our schools.
Thank you, Shelley. Karen, hashtag We Are Milton, and how would you use it effectively?
Well, I have to say, Shelley pretty much took the words right out of my mouth. It is not. Hashtag Milton is not just the district; it is the community. 10 years ago, my husband and I had to move. We kind of outgrew our home, And my one requirement when we moved was we had to stay in the Milton School District. Simply because I knew all of the positives that my children were going to benefit from by being in the Milton School District and in the city of Milton. We are City of Janesville residents, and we still consider ourselves City of Milton residents. I've often said you can take the Miltonite out of Milton, but you can't take the Milton out of the Miltonite. We're Milton, and I every day you see that happening, as Shelley said, whether it's businesses giving to the school or churches or kids giving back. We have absolutely wonderful peer support groups in our school system. It is Milton, and I think we just need to continue to foster that with things like our co-curriculars and projects of those sorts. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Chuck, hashtag We Are Milton.
Being last on this question, it's hard to expound on it or expend on it. I think there's a lot of truth to that. We are Milton. Milton is a community of a lot of long-lived people, a lot of people of history within the community, and those people support the institutions that are in the community. I think the other thing that they didn't say that I would add is when you walk into a store in Janesville, and you say hello to somebody as they're walking out the door, they may look at you, they may kind of look kind of crazy. When you walk into Piggly Wiggly, when you walk into Ace Hardware, when you walk into the bank and you say, hello, have a great day, the Milton people respond back to you. It is very much a small town community with a high level of friendliness and companionship.
Thank you, Chuck. We've been moving quite along pretty well. We've got a few questions from the audience we will attend to. These will just be 1-minute answers. And we will begin with Karen. And you touched on this a bit before, but maybe to expand on it, how do you balance budget priorities, students versus the taxpayer?
Thanks.
And are they necessarily opposites?
I know. It is a delicate balancing act. I think that so far we have done, at least in the 4 years that I've been on the board, we have done a pretty good job of that. You take a look at, our wants and needs and define whether or not our wants are truly wants and our needs are truly needs. We went through that painstaking process with the referendum. But in the end, we always seem to come out with the right answer. Our kids always seem to get what they want or need. And, we try, and we seem to do it with relatively little impact on the taxpayers. Many people are going to say, well, we've got the referendum, but yes, that had a fairly large impact on taxpayers. But it was a lot more than what we're usually working with. Thank
We're now
you.
tied 1-1.
So, Chuck, maybe you can do better. How do you balance budget priorities, students versus taxpayers?
Well, being on a school board at one point, which I think we all have, I guess, it's an insatiable appetite. There's always needs. There's always legitimate places to spend the money. We are the Milton School District. Our job is to educate kids. So people might find this unusual that I would say this, but I'm willing to spend more money if it's being put to a good cause. And if it raises the taxes, it raises the taxes. That's just the way it is. Everyone has sacred cows. So it's really hard to do budget priorities because what I think is irrelevant, somebody else is the most important thing in the world to them. So it is really a hard thing to do. But that's one of the biggest challenges of the board is to give the direction to the administration and say, this is where we need to go, this is what we need to do. I certainly don't want to starve the district, though.
Finally, Shelley.
I'm back in the lead.
Can you read the question one more time?
Yeah, how do you balance budget priorities, students versus taxpayers? And again, these are questions from the audience.
Okay, in my world, students always come first, no matter what, they come first. People forget as board members, we are also taxpayers. We could not foresee, I did not foresee that I'd have a $60,000 tax increment assessment on my home this year on top of the referendum. That changed the bill, that changed how things looked. People had huge property assessments that were not in the forecast of what this was coming about. Whether you understand or not, Steve Shantz, our building and grounds person, does a 5-year, 10-year plan of facility needs. So a lot of time on the board, we'd say this definitely needs to be done, but it's going on the 5-year plan. Or this one's out in the 10-year plan, but we need it done now because there's now a leak in the roof or something like that. Our mill rate is the lowest in the area at 7.81, and our pupil per pupil spending is the lowest. So you need to look in comparison. I know it doesn't help your pocketbook, but in comparison to other districts around us, we are one of the lowest and most conservative in what our spending is.
Thank you, Shelley. Scaring me, John. All right, we're going to begin with Chuck Jackson. Milton board members and administrators and staff have worked hard to move forward with nothing but positivity. As a board member, will you dwell on the past or focus on the future?
Focus on the future, learn from the past. I don't think there's anything more to say.
Shelley.
I am ready to move forward with the board, with the community, with the school districts. I talked to one of the administrators and they're ready to do business as usual and get back to the business of teaching our kids and not to be, in this influx of fighting and turmoil and things like that. I feel like we need the local media also to do the same, to move forward and not keep rehashing old board situations, old administrator situations, and making comparisons to our new set of administrators and new board members compared to the members in the past. So I say move on forward and let's be positive.
All right, Shelley. And finally, Karen.
Wow, this is a hard one to be last on. Again, I would agree with both Chuck and Shelley. Let's move forward. Let's put the past behind us. Learn from the past mistakes that we have made, but stay focused and move forward. Dwelling on the past is not going to do anything but create more animosity, more hurt, and let's move forward. I think a great many of us have already done that, and staff and community members that I have talked to are looking forward to moving forward and painting a brighter picture for Milton.
Thank you very much, Karen. All right, Shelley, this question will be for you first. Being a good board member requires a huge amount of time. Now, are you going to commit to the time necessary to be, and I guess the key here is informed board member?
As a experienced board member, I realize the time that it is needed. When we were selected and given priorities on committees to be on, we chose committees that we knew that we could be at. If I'm working, which most of us were all working at that time, we had a few retired board members who could come to the daytime meetings, committee meetings, so they were on that. We would choose to be on the committees that were after 4:00 and open for us to be able to get there on our work commitments and things like that. As a good board member, you need to be informed by reading all the materials before you come to the board meeting. It's very apparent that some people never look at their emails or look at the agenda items and the things that were given to them until they come to the board. So you need to be prepared by attending your committee meetings and giving your input and opinions to them at those committee meetings, because that's where most of the information is deciphered and handed out to you. So by the time you come to the board meeting, you can make an informed decision when we are going to vote on something.
Thank you very much, Shelley. Karen, will you take the time necessary to be an informed board member?
All I have to say is that going forward, you cannot commit more time than we have over the past 18 months. So if you're not a committed board member by that point, I don't think you ever will be. Weekly meetings do not make for fun. Yes, absolutely. I do have the commitment. I will make that commitment. I have made that commitment to attend those board meetings, to be prepared for those board meetings and those committee meetings. Thank you.
And you, Chuck.
This is a really easy question. because been there, done that. And the only question that I really had to ponder about sitting here and running was, did I want to spend the time? I take this really serious. I'm going to ask questions before, after, and during the discussion on action items that we're considering. This is a no-brainer for me. I don't want to sit here and be an egotist or something, but I'm going to be just as hardworking or the hardest working board member of anybody. Knowledge is understanding. Knowledge is the ability to persuade others that may not believe what you believe or what you think. I'm semi-retired at this point, and I have time and I have passion.
Thank you, Chuck. And now for the closing 2 minutes from each of you. This time, Karen, we will begin with you.
As I said when I opened up, I have led the last 4 years as a board member with honesty, integrity, clarity, open-mindedness, and I will continue to do that for you. There are no more important people in this district than our students, and I look forward to the opportunity to finally get back to doing what is in the best interest of our students. As been mentioned and alluded to up here tonight, the last probably 18 months have been far from that. And I want to get back to that because the people that really suffered through all of this were our students. They're why we're here. They're why you are sitting out there. And they are our number one priority. So I think it is important to take a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Chuck, your 2-minute closing statement.
Talking about myself isn't something that I'm really comfortable with. We talked about the referendum. The referendum is important because the referendum spells opportunity. I'm talking about the $2.5 million. You talked about co-curricular activities. If you don't get the $2.5 million, that's where the cuts are going to come from. I have a fair amount of business acumen. I understand the budgets, and I just think that I can help the district not only in how we present ourselves, how we market ourselves, but I think that the other thing that district needs to do is have more transparency. And by having transparency and by being totally, having a different level of communication with the community, that's also going to help us pass this referendum that is inevitable. So those are the things that I think I can help you with, the things I can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck and Shelley.
I think I bring a lot of experience to the position as a board member. I'm not a professional board member. I am a 3-year experienced board member with a lot still to learn. I feel like I just got my toes wet when I was on for the 3 years, but I've been involved with lots of committees, and I see lots of people in the audience who's I've been on committee members with, and fought the fight and listened and heard from community members and teachers and administrators and community leaders. I think as a parent, I can bring a lot of value input. Both of my kids have graduated now, one in 2013, one in 2019. So I saw them all the way through the education system, and I constantly say I had 2 kids at 2 different ends of the spectrum in Milton schools, and their staff met each of their needs all the way along. Being on the board made me a better educator and leader in my own district. I could understand and actually sit down and have a conversation with my own superintendent, which I couldn't have done before I became a board member, and understood the decisions that were being made and why they were being made to the staff. And hopefully I can communicate that to our people in the community. Again, I bring honesty, integrity. What I say, I mean what I say and say what I mean. And you kind of take it as that it's not always the most popular way for to speak, but that's how I feel. I can make good, sound decisions, and I've proven that in the past. And I see the bigger picture of things. I see Milton growing. I see every great thing we have in this district, and I don't think it gets enough promotion to all the good things that we're doing. Unless you're in the building seeing it and experiencing it when the kids are in there, you don't understand what's happening. People in this room often give lots of time on their Facebook to all the great things that are happening in their community. And I appreciate all that involvement and promoting our schools and the staff and the kids and the families in our district. And I think I can represent that diverse component of all those people.
Thank you, Shelley. It takes a lot of courage and commitment for anybody to run for public office and, of course, to serve. So I know we would all like to thank our candidates tonight. And I know John has a few parting words.
Thanks for coming. It's an important piece of the community to be here and give time for these people to give their opinions and answers to these questions. I'd urge you to talk with them all individually. Take them to coffee, take them to lunch, pick their brains, ask them things that you aren't understanding, if that's such a thing in your mind with them. They're people. They will talk to you. And it's amazing what talk can do for all of us. Mike Hoffman and Dave Holterman will be getting copies of these questions emailed to them as soon as I get home to my computer tonight. They will be answering them in writing. At this moment, I'm not sure exactly how they're going to appear because I believe the Courier is going to be interviewing them, and some of those questions may or may not be pieces of that. But that's all going to happen, so you'll see that soon. But they haven't seen the questions yet. They'll get them this evening. And Mike can answer them from his sick bed, and Dave can answer them from wherever he is on his business trip or vacation or whatever that might be. The primary is on the 18th. It's coming right up. And it will reduce 5 candidates to 4 candidates is what the result will be. So please be sure and vote. Either get an absentee or an early ballot or show up that day, because that's the best way to make anything happen for all of these elections for the city and the school district. Have some cookies, some water on the way out. Go ahead and jump up and meet the candidates, and thank you very much for being here.